Welcome to Wicked Binge, your home for great cinema and television, because we love your favorite movies and shows too. Sure, there are some happy times on Game of Thrones. I mean, they're short-lived, but they exist. But let's be real. The majority of memorable moments the show has seared into our brains are the ones that ruined us emotionally. I'm Brad with Wicked Binge. Get your tissue box because today we're taking a look at the top 10 saddest Game of Thrones moments that made us cry. Let's get started. Number 10. Maester LUWIN'S death. Maester LUWIN'S death was sad enough on its own, but made even worse by the devastation it caused Bran and Rickon. The kind, sad old man never faltered in his duty to the Starks or to Winterfell, looking after the boys and the castle after Robb went to war. He was inherently good right up to the moment he was murdered in cold blood, a harmless old man that even tried to help Theon. But unfortunately, the Ironborn saw him as a loose end that needed tying off. A true emotional end to the second season. Number 9. Death of the Direwolf. The Direwolves seem to hold a special place in the hearts of fans, loyal protectors of the Starks, plastered right there on their sigil, massive and vicious, yet adorable. However, sadly, we discovered in the second episode of the show that they're not invincible, when King Robert Baratheon orders Ned to execute Sansa's wolf, Lady, punishment for when Arya's wolf, Nymeria, attacked Joffrey and ran off into the woods. An unjust end for the beast, and the tears that flowed from Sansa likely fell from the eyes of fans as well. Number 8. Last words from YGRITTE. She was the first love of Jon Snow, our hero who was always outcast, even by his own family. YGRITTE and Jon find each other for an inevitable showdown. Jon, ready to die, he refuses to fight, but just as YGRITTE reaches the same decision, she's struck by an arrow shot by Ollie. Jon rushes to her side, holding her in disbelief. Just before she dies in his arm, she tells Jon what she's always known about him, that he knows nothing.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Number 7. The Fall of the Red Viper. Prince Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, made an instant impression when he arrived at the outset of Season 4, and the charm of Pedro Pascal ensured he was already a clear fan favorite by the time he promised to be Tyrion's champion. While he had a literal mountain to climb in order to win, it generally seemed like they were going to give him this one. His light-footed, twirling fighting style gave him the upper hand over the sheer size and strength of Gregor Clegane, and he'd all but struck the decisive blow.
You can't die yet, you haven't confessed.
But showboating was the thing to kill him, and it was pretty mind-blowing to watch. Number 6. When the sun sets in the east. Game of Thrones can make you despise a character one episode and make you sympathize with them in another. Fans experienced this for the first time with Khal Drogo, a man who's initially terrifying but becomes something of a heroic figure the more we learn about him, as well as his love and loyalty for Daenerys. The Mother of Dragons puts Drogo out of his misery, smothering him to death and ending his brief run on the show. Number 5. For the Watch. Jon, lured out under the pretense of news about his uncle Benjen, is branded a traitor and quickly finds himself on the wrong side of a mutiny.
For the Watch.
Led by Alliser Thorne, they queue up to take turns stabbing him to death. As blade after blade plunges into his chest, there's still a part of you thinking it can't really be happening, or that he'll somehow survive. I mean, he's Jon Snow after all. But Westeros is a cruel world, and this death was damn near violating just to watch, especially when Ollie delivers the final blow. Number 4. The Red Wedding. The 9th episode of Game of Thrones Season 3 is officially titled The Reigns of Castamere, but it's more commonly referred to as the Red Wedding episode because of the sheer magnitude of shock and tragedy on hand at the twins. Robb, having broken his engagement to one of Walder Frey's daughters, turns up at his home for the marriage of his uncle Edmure, taking his place at the altar. There are assurances that everything is now fine, forgive and forget, and that there's a new wedding to celebrate. It's a masterful execution of escalation. Edmure and his new wife leave, and the doors close behind them. There's a subtle shift in music. Roose Bolton reveals he's wearing armor. What comes next remains the most shocking, devastating, and chaotic scene in Game of Thrones or even recent TV show history. Heavily pregnant Talisa is stabbed in the stomach, Robb's bannermen are brutally slaughtered, and the young wolf takes a few arrows himself. Then, there's a brief pause. Just enough time to try and take stock of what's happened, the carnage left behind, to catch your breath. And then we begin again. The Lannisters send their regards. And just like that, Ned Stark's firstborn son is dead. House Stark falls. The good guys lose. It drains us in every way, and the final look on Cat Stark's face says it all.
The Lannisters send their regards.
Number 3. Burned at the stake. Shireen was one of the few truly innocent and good characters on the show, and she suffered a death that was harrowing and painful to watch. A complete surprise for book readers as well as show viewers. It's made painful by how sweet we've watched this little girl be, especially in the episodes leading up to this moment. Stannis had promised he'd never hurt her, but when she says she'll do anything to help him, she's unwittingly signing her own death warrant as she's led through the crowd and tied to the stake. We expect Stannis to change his mind, but he just watches as his only child is burned alive. Those screams pierced our hearts and aren't something likely to be forgotten anytime soon. Number 2. Hold the door. The one truly huge shock for book readers and unsullied viewers alike was Hodor's death. Pursued by White Walkers, Mira shouts at Hodor to hold the door while she escapes with Bran. At the same time, Bran is in the past, having a vision of a young Hodor. Time loops back on itself, and we see that what caused Willis to become Hodor was Bran and Mira in the future.
Hodor! 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 Hodor!
It's excruciating to watch, and you'll do so with your mouth open and tears pouring from your eyes. Number 1. Ned's execution. When Game of Thrones first started, Sean Bean was the biggest name in the cast, and his character reflected that. While the series had a huge cast, Ned was the closest thing the series had to a main protagonist. He was the hero we needed back then too. In this vast world full of characters morally ambiguous at best and sadistically bankrupt at worst, he was our compass. TV shows don't tend to kill off their main character, so even when we saw Ned exploring the Lannisters' secrets deeper and then thrown in a cell, we assumed he'd be fine. Heck, even when his head was on the chopping block, it still seemed like a safe bet there'd be a last-second swerve. But if this list has taught us anything, it's that the world of Game of Thrones is cruel, unfair, and heart-wrenching. So old Ned got the cut. What do you think? What's your saddest Game of Thrones moments that made you cry? Did we leave anything out? Let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching this episode. What lists and countdowns do you want to see next? Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notifications whenever we upload. But most importantly, stay wicked.